Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to share my passion, my new passion for working with the brain, and really the latest science of the brain that I'm going to give you a brief share around. So, for those of you that don't know me, I am Dr. Laura Stuve. I'll share a bit about my background um, in a moment, but I'm going to be joined in a little while by my colleagues and friends, Julia and Britt, so that you can hear shares from just a few voices today. So, my focus has always been both as a scientist and as a mind body medicine practitioner and instructor and content developer. I've been fascinated by, at the molecular level, what's the difference between health and disease? And so really understanding the nuts and bolts, the science of health. And as I've followed the science, this has really evolved into a fascination with the science of the mind-body connection. uh, and how we can work with this latest science of how our mind impacts our body and our body impacts our mind, how we can bring that into our healing practices to make a profound difference in people's health. This is not really the focus in Western medicine, as we all know, but it is a interdisciplinary adventure in science. There are fields such as neuroendocrinology, where the brain and the hormonal communication pathways really are interlinked. There is psychoneuroendocrinology, where our, thoughts and belief systems and stresses and our whole mental emotional psychology is woven into how our brain and our hormones are working. And then more recently, the intertwining of the nervous system and the immune system has been defined. So there is the psychoneuroimmunology and neuroimmunology. So there's a whole host of scientific fields that go there, but this in general, this integration has not been brought into medicine. So my gift, my superpower is taking the latest cutting edge science and turning that into accessible tools that are really revolutionary for integrative healthcare practitioners, getting those tools in your hands so that you understand the science and you have strategies that you can use with your clients, your family, your friends to make a difference in their health. So this general focus in all everything mind body led me to dive into kind of the latest chapter in the research on the brain. And so that is what I'm going to be sharing today. A little bit about that science, how it has evolved my practice, and why I feel this is a huge quantum leap in our ability to address anything. So, a bit about my background then before I dive in. I have a PhD in molecular biology and biochemistry. I spent many years doing basic science, both in academia and in the biotechnology industry, in the area of looking at the information in our genes and the code on top of our genes and how that impacts our biology and our health. So the field of genetics and epigenetics. Uh, 20 years ago, I discovered Body Talk Mind Body Medicine, and I really never looked back. It was the integration of everything that I have ever been interested in. And so, after a few years of trying to run a lab and do Body Talk, I did a career change, and I was an advanced practitioner and a senior instructor in the system But because of my science background, my focus was to both bring scientific validation into the system, as well as to develop trainings based on new science. So I worked for several years with Dr. Janet Gallipo to design, run, and then eventually publish in a peer-reviewed publication a study that looked at distance body talk treatments and showed remarkable results in people that had chronic pain. And then my main focus has really been developing healing tools based on new science. Dr. Veldheim, the founder of the Body Talk system, invited me to work with him on my first project here, bringing the information that showed a paradigm change in microbes and health from the Human Microbiome Project into the hands of body talkers. So that was the body ecology class. And then I developed a whole host of other trainings. I really brought my background in epigenetics into the community, as well as my fascination with the mind-body connection. So all of the neurotransmitters and hormones and cytokines and how they really create our mood and state of mind. And then I took this science focus and continued a collaboration with Dr. Gallipo to develop a more scienced up version of body talk that brought in the depth of her background in Chinese medicine, and that is the body intuitive system. And then over the past couple of years, I had, in the developing of body talk, I had done advanced trainings in all of these sparkly new areas of science, but the one that I hadn't had time for, because the pandemic really kind of turned me into just a real understanding and fascination with the immune system and immune-based tools, was all of the new information from the Human Connectome Project. But this has really been my playground for 2 years, and I'm going to invite you all into that playground today. So I have developed or really downloaded a method for attuning the frequencies of your brain networks, and it is fun and easy, and I want to tell you about it. So, but I want to frame this in a bigger conversation. I want to take a step back and kind of place this scientific revolution in uh, a category of other revolutions. So, when the telescope was invented, it was a piece of new technology that allowed people to look into the heavens and update the whole paradigm of the solar system. The Earth was not the middle of the solar system, the telescopes told us. It was actually the sun. So it changed our whole map of the heavens, this new tool. I'm going to step forward uh, a few hundred years, and the DNA sequencers that allowed us to sequence the human genome shifted our understanding of the role of microorganisms in health from a certainty that they were germs to an understanding from the Human Microbiome Project when we pointed this new instrument at sequencing the microbes that were part of our body, that we are an ecosystem. We are microbe and human. We are actually more microbe than human. And then with this recent technological kind of revolution of pointing magnetic resonance instruments at live living people's brains as they did different tasks. These fMRI images have taken us really from a Cartesian view of the brain, of this is what this brain area does, and this is what this brain area does, into an understanding of the human connectome, which is the universe of the brain networks. And I'm going to explain what these are. So as a scientist, I really geek out at these revolutions with new technology that change our whole view. But as a mind-body medicine practitioner, what I'm most interested in is how can we use this new understanding to make a difference for people's health? Okay. So we all know science evolves rapidly. If we look at anything electronic like cell phones, um, that every year or two there is a whole new technology. I remember the first cell phones that look like this, what this gentleman is talking on in the upper right corner, and you wouldn't trust any doctor that was using a phone like this. So I want to place in your kind of sphere an understanding that what if our healing systems could actually keep up with the science? Because that is the revolution in healthcare that I want to enable. So let's talk about the brain networks and the Human Connectome Project. So the fMRIs allowed scientists to image the brain in images that looked like this upper right-hand corner and to relate the connections in the brain to capacities of our brains and our bodies. So our ability to think, to eat, to move, to sense, all to remember things, all organized by what areas of the brain kind of light up together when we're doing a task. So any project that ends in an ohm means that they collect mountains of data from many people with the new technology of the day. In this case, the advanced brain imaging fMRI methods on brains of healthy people, and they had all the people do one task. They imaged all their brains, and they then mapped the networks. And then the research findings were made available to the whole community. So this image over here and the ones on this slide are actually, if you, these are actual computer graphics from the Human Connectome Project. Like all of the bright fluorescent green fibers light up together. They are one network. You can see it's not one brain spot. It's not all in one place. The green fibers are throughout the brain. And then the blue-violet fibers, a different network. The red ones, a different network. So these all these areas of the brain that really work as a team to accomplish specific tasks. And I'm going to share this quote with you from Dr. Francis Collins, who is the head of the Human Genome Project and the Human Connectome Project. Depending on whom you ask, there are a lot of different answers, but these days, some of the world's top neurobiologists might say you are your connectome. All right, we're going to see that these brain networks, they have our belief systems, they have the story of our lives. We are all unique, and the frequencies of what we have lived through are in these networks. So I'm going to define a brain network now. These are actual images from the Human Connectome Project of these MRIs. So a brain network is a set of brain areas that all activate at the same time, synchronously. They're in coherence, and they work together to accomplish a specific brain function. And they flicker on and off all the time. The nervous system works very quickly, and they allow us to respond to the world around us, which changes all the time. It is very dynamic, and we need to know what to sense, what to pay attention to, what to remember, how to move, depending on the environment around us. And the fun thing that when you get acquainted with these networks, not only do they have a specific function, they're really kind of like sub-personalities. So you understand your psyche and your behaviors and your psychology when you work with the networks. So kind of diving into the science and figuring out how to translate that into something based on the science, this is what showed up for me. Okay. I don't even know where this method came from, but I call it the brain network attunement method. And it is a 6-step method that you can integrate. It's a standalone method, or you can integrate it into anything that you already practice in your clinic. And it really will transform your health and transform your mind and transform your life. And the essence of it is clearing disruptions in the brain networks and then bringing back in a healthy frequency that we call the repattern. And I'm going to give you an analogy of that. So first I'm going to talk about attunement. What are we doing? What does attunement mean? It really means to harmonize something, to bring something into harmony. And in the brain networks trainings, you learn a new approach to basically harmonize brain networks, to attune them. And it is based on the science of the Human Connectome Project. As I've said, you can do just this, or you can integrate it in with other things you do. You will use tools from any system you know. And as a body talker and a body intuitive, I designed the system for people with that background that use structured intuition, which is a term that Dr. Veldheim, the founder of the Body Talk system, coined. And it means that you use your intuition in a structure that corresponds to the structure of how the body works, how the energy flow in the body, the different areas of the body. But I have expanded it now to get anyone that's interested from any background, um, primarily other integrative healers, but anyone can learn it. Psychologists, nurses, energy practitioners, other people. There's so many amazing emotional, somatic, and trauma approaches, background in any of those areas you can weave in this work. Okay, so I'm going to give you an analogy to understand what the brain networks are and this whole clearing and repatterning process. So one of the best analogies for the brain networks is that all the brain areas that are networked together sing a song together. They play a symphony together. They are different voices in the song. They hold different melodies and different tones. And in this work, we're looking for things in our past history, influences from the past that have corrupted the lyrics of the songs, the synergy of the voices in the network. And these influences that bring in disturbing frequencies don't just corrupt the network, they often corrupt that network's connection between the other networks, because a network is one set of interlinked brain areas, but each of the networks is networked into the other network. So it's kind of like a hierarchy of networks and super networks. So I'm using the analogy of a song. So I decided to pick a song that was about harmony. Okay, and this is a song that I remember um, uh, from when I was a little kid. I'd like to teach the world to sing. And it's really, I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to hold it in my arms and keep it company. I'm not going to sing the rest of the song here, but there are lyrics to this beautiful song about a harmonious world. Okay. But things happen, life happens that we all live through, you know, physical accidents, emotional turmoil, stresses. And in this work, we figure out what network wants to be the star of the show for the day, and then what left its imprint on the frequency of the network. So as a molecular biologist, I've been trained to look for imprints that disturb things. That's what epigenetics is. And I brought that perspective into this the brain frequency work. So in this example, the disruptor or past influence is a car accident that the client was in when they were 26. They had a concussion, so they had trauma to their head. There was a lot of emotions that they remember from the time, grief and guilt because they were driving the car and their good friend, who was also in the car, lost a leg in the crash. So it doesn't matter whose fault it was, there's an emotional burden and kind of the physical trauma of the concussion as well. So this is the past influence. This disruptor basically introduced a bunch of garbage frequencies into the middle of this beautiful song. So this brain network, when it tries to do whatever its functions are, they don't work quite the way they did before the car accident. So the focus of the work is then to find what created the disruption. What is the past influence or set of past influences? And and then clear that. And then to bring in a frequency, it's almost like the specific antidote of the past influence. It cancels the past influence out and to sing that antidote to the network. So there is the clearing of the disrupting frequency and the reharmonizing with the repatterned frequency. I'm not going to explain the complicated method, but I just wanted to give you the gist. Okay. So working now for a couple years with brain networks, I have a background in many different things from my science and mind-body medicine training, but now everything hangs off of the brain networks. I have not found anything that I cannot address more quickly and more easily with a neurocentric approach based on looking at the brain networks that are involved. Because as I highlighted at the beginning, the the neural networks actually control the immune system. They control inflammation. They regulate all the hormonal loops in the body. So they regulate the endocrines. They manage the function of your organs, your whole digestive system, obviously in the gut brain, your whole cardiovascular system in the heart brain, but really all the organs, the liver, the gallbladder, the spleen, everything is innervated by the nervous system, and the nervous system is the master control. The ability to move, to feel pain or not, the way we hold tension in our muscles, our posture, our ability to sense the world, our sensory integration, our ability to focus and remember and think and do hard thinking, our motivation, any mental emotional issue, and fascinating. There are some really amazing ways to leverage the brain networks with the energy body. I do a lot of um, reconnections between the the um, the layers of the energy body, the meridian system in Chinese medicine, and then the chakras are kind of their own special thing because the chakras are neural networks. And so at the advanced level of this work, we bring the chakras in as neural networks, looking at their wiring as well as their mindsets and consciousness. And it is really a wonderful integration. So I've just kind of given you the gist of this work. Since I started Body Talk and then moved into Body Intuitive, my fascination in this type of healthcare is getting to the story behind the symptoms. And in Body Talk, that's represented by the iceberg diagram, where everything under the surface is the why the symptoms are there. And this little bit sticking out the top, those are the symptoms. Those are the things that can be analyzed on blood tests or hormonal panels. Um, that's what can be seen. And by finding and unlocking the story behind the symptoms, healing magic occurs. And several years ago, I coined the phrase, your body has answers, okay? Because the body has this whole story of what's underneath the iceberg. And it's a very powerful way to address things in healthcare. But now I would say from working with the brain network, the body definitely has the answers, but the brain networks have the root cause as well as the most efficient and effective magical healing solutions that I personally have observed and experienced in my own healing. So, I'm sure you can tell by now that I'm enthusiastic about the brain and this work. But I'm just going to quickly share 3 wows for me from my research and my dabbling in brain network attunement healing. And the first is there's many categories of memories, and I now feel like I've ended up at a much deeper root cause level of memories. I've really come to have a recognition that it's not just our emotional memories, but the somatic memories, the memories of our body are incredibly important. And then always wanting to help validate this work. I feel like the science of brain networks really explains medical intuition and what we do as body talkers and body intuitives in our clinics. So I'm just going to briefly share here. So in doing any type of mind-body medicine, it is essential to find memories from the past, really that where we're carrying our emotional baggage. And these are memories that have active emotional charge, and this is the key to healing. Okay? And these memories that are similar, kind of network together in the brain, science has shown that. And if you find one of these networks of similar memories, all on a theme, okay, you can clear them out very efficiently as a whole file drawer. But the cognitive science behind brain networks has taken me to a new level of memory that I had not been to before in this way. And these are memories that, yes, they have active emotions. They might be in a file drawer, but these are the big memories in that file drawer that change our being. They change how we think, they change what we believe, they change how we perceive, and they change the physiology of our body. And the term for these memories in cognitive science is priors. Okay. Um, so they're referred to as priors. So they're a subset of the active memories that in science are called pathogenic memories. They're deeper, they're older, and they're more, in fact, impactful. And when we started working with the brain networks, this is where we ended up. These are held as frequencies in the brain networks. And when you find them and clear and repattern them, there are profound, rapid shifts and really incredible insights from the clients. And I want to give you just a couple examples. So first, I'm just going to take you to, this is just from a session that I did a week ago, but this is the type of thing that a client might say when you get to a prior. So I'll describe the incident in a minute, but this is what she said. I'm totally aware that that memory, that experience changed my life. There was a before and an after. Okay, that is the essence of a prior because a new mindset uh, or sometimes a new behavior, a new way of being happens in uh, when an emotionally charged memory is qualifies as a prior. So the mindset afterwards that she had is life is holding only by a thin thread. Okay. So life is very fragile. So she was a very healthy, active young woman, had injured her shoulder, just a teenager. She was in for shoulder surgery, not so complicated, but she had a reaction to a drug that they gave her as they're rolling her in and ready to start the surgery, and she went into respiratory arrest. She couldn't move, she couldn't speak, and she couldn't breathe. So she thought she was going to die. And looking up at the clinicians around her, no one was noticing that something was wrong. And then she lost consciousness. Okay. Obviously, she came out fine. It's many years later, but she had a different view of the fragility of life since that time. Okay. I'm going to give you one other quick example here. So when I was a child and early teenage years, I swam competitively. So I swam for about 5 or 6 years, and I loved swimming. I always loved to be in the water. I swam 1 to 3 hours a day. Um, but on, and I was going to swim my first race in the ocean, and it turned out the race was on my birthday, the day I turned 14. But the issue was I had been swimming with the people my age, the 12 and 13-year-olds being 13, but and they swam like a nice small loop in the ocean, still very challenging race. But when you turned 14, you swam with the adults. So basically, I was all of a sudden swimming, I think it was about 6 times further. The race was much longer. And I was swimming with close to 100 women of all ages, very competitive swimmers. And it was up there with one of the worst experiences of my life. This sea of women basically all ran into the water together. I found a picture of an ocean water race so that you'd get an idea. And the goal really, it seemed, this is the mindset that I was left with. The best way to get ahead and win was to swim right over the top of the people in front of you. So that's what I remember. I was kind of one of the smallest people there. I was the youngest, and they pulled on your body, they dunked you. I was sure that I was going to drown, and my right leg was pulled by a woman, or maybe many women, in an attempt to get ahead. And that injury has evolved over time, that the memory in that whole neurological um, area of my body is part of the sacroiliac pain that I've been recovering from with this work for the past year. So that gives you just a feel for what a prior is. Um, and I just want to give you another example of how priors have taken us to a different level of working with memories. So I've been working with an amazing woman who, as my client, but she's also a practitioner herself. I've worked with her for a few years. She's made major progress. We've cleared many, many emotionally charged memories. But when we started working with brain networks and getting to this category of prior, we got to a whole new level, memories that we've never been to before. And she has a fair amount of stress in her life now, but what I observed in the brain network session is that her body is actually going into severe stress mode. Remember these, you flicker in and out of these network states. She was triggering sympathetic mode tens of thousands of times a day. And that was really preventing healing because no healing happens when the body is in that type of stress. And we really got to the root of this, which is she was in Israel at the beginning of the Gulf War. She remembers lying in bed in the middle of the night. She was listening to something that she listened to, and it was a radio station called The Voice of Peace, broadcasting from a ship that was called the Peace Ship in the Mediterranean. She even remembers what she was listening to at the time. Neil Diamond and Barry Manilow. And then through this beautiful, harmonious music, all of a sudden, there was kind of another signal that came in, lots of beeps and codes like viper snake. And her whole nervous system went into alarm. She heard the air raid just a few minutes later. It was the first time she had heard an air raid signal, and a mindset kicked in. Some people would be like, I have to hide, but she went into just immobilized to survive. I have to move. I have to check all the doors. I have to check my mom. I have to grab my prayer book. And she now shares that she can feel this mindset kick in every day as she starts her day. And she still wakes up at the middle of the night, although she never did before this experience. So I've tried to give you a few examples of these priors. I really want to move and bring on Britt and Julia, but I want to just say something about the body memories. So basically, what I've realized from working with the brain networks that our brains hold two different types of memories. We're aware of our conscious memory of things that we have emotionally lived through, things that made us sad, angry, fearful. But there's another level of memory held in a different brain network that is more subconscious. And these are the somatic memories, the memories of the body. And the brain network attunements always address the two together. Mind and body do not just impact each other. In this work, we really see that they're completely one. So I shared my experience of the birthday swim race, and basically my change after that was I never get in a pool. I never swim. You can't get me in water. Okay. Before that, I was in water all the time. Um, there were a whole set of memories in unpacking my chronic pain in my hip. After swimming, I went to gymnastics, and I've always been aware that since doing gymnastics, my right hip has been different. It always pops, and that happened when I started gymnastics. But when I started going to the body memories of what happened in gymnastics, There was all this negative messaging from the male coach about how, you know, this group of girls that I was part of, we were never going to amount to anything. We just weren't going to be good. He was, doing us a favor to work with us. So we felt kind of demeaned. And as we are getting that messaging, doing the various things in the uneven parallel bars, you're constantly wrapping your hips around the bar. So the somatic memories here were remembering the experience of swimming this race, the women pulling me underwater, the woman pulling on my right leg, remembering working with the uneven parallel bars, which I actually really liked. But as I constantly banged my hips against this bar, because that's how you do it, I kind of downloaded all of this messaging from the coach. So just a little snippet of somatic memories. All right. And then the last thing that I think is really cool is I feel like I understand from a brain networks and a scientific perspective how we work as medical intuitives in the body talk and body intuitive system. We learn the capacity to focus our intuition on someone else. What's up for them? What's their priority? What needs to be addressed, linked up, energized, healed? And this pretty amazing capability can now, science has validated it with the brain networks because we all have the capacity to turn up the volume on our intuitive perception, that voice within, that is a particular network, the salience network. We all have two attention networks, one that allows us to focus on whatever we really want to focus on, and the other it relates to distraction. So we can ignore the distractions and tune into what's up with someone else. But there is also a network that has been described that everyone has that operates all the time that allows us to read somebody else's mind. What's up for them? What do they think? What are their emotions? To perceive their emotions and really to feel what they're feeling inside us. Okay, so this capacity to read someone else's mind and body, this is what we use. We also have a network that is our capacity to be in the zone, in a flow state where we can download a lot of information that normally we wouldn't have access to. That's the enlightenment network. So this collaboration of all of these brain networks really it is a beautiful way to understand the capabilities that we have in these systems of medical intuition. So I hope I've got you excited about that. I'm going to just quickly share how long does this take? So I'm going to share 4 stories of pain. The first, I had a bad flu about 6 months ago. And even though I was essentially recovered, my whole body ached. I was achy everywhere. My mouth hurt, my joints hurt, my face hurt, everything hurt. And I sat down and I'm like, I'm going to give myself a little session. This is ridiculous, this level of pain. And I tuned into the network that was basically turning the volume up on the pain. All the pain was gone in 10 minutes. Okay. I had a client that came to me that had really trigeminal neuralgia, really bad facial pain from activation of the shingles virus after an infection. Gave her one session. All the pain was gone in one day. I had another client that had right sacroiliac pain, just like me. I gave her 2 sessions working on my understanding of the pain networks in the body and the pain relief networks. She was better in 2 sessions. And then there's me. I had right SI pain, um, and really a chronic condition that has been going on for about a year. And this is not a 10 minutes, one day or two sessions. This has been many, many sessions by many amazing practitioners. Um, and slowly it is getting better. It just really recently jumped from about 30 to 40% better to about 80 to 90% better. So this work has resolved it, but it took a little bit longer. And I've shared just a few of the priors that were behind that. Okay, and now I'm going to bring up Britt and Julia to join me so that you can get some other perspectives on this work. So I'm going to invite you guys to introduce yourselves and share a little bit about why did you dive into brain networks and what is your experience of this work. So I'm going to start with Britt here.
Thank you, Laura. I've been working as a holistic healthcare practitioner for coming up to 20 years, first with Body Talk and then subsequently with Body Intuitive, working very closely with Laura. I also have a PhD and doctorate in natural medicine, where my dissertation was about the mindset research about stress. I used to live in the UK, in London, and it's nice to see familiar names that I know from that time on the list today. Hello, everyone. Then I lived in Malaysia for some years, and now I live in my native Denmark. Um, so I first heard about this work from Laura, and to be honest, I didn't really look much at it because it was what Laura did, and I know her ability to make these new scientific findings into something that can make a huge difference in my practice with my clients. I know that very well, and I trust it. So I almost blindly just said, where do I sign up? And then when I started working with the material about a year ago, I just really loved the new territory of working with the brain networks. It was like a little bit like going scuba diving, like a whole new world unveiled itself. And this sort of functional approach to looking at the brain really spoke to me, and it was fascinating. Like I was a little kid in a sweet shop almost, being able to work directly with my client's inner voice, for instance, or work directly with the function of self-control, or work with the relationship between the networks that keep us focused and the network that helps us switch attention when that's called for, really sort of playing with that balance and clear whatever has disturbed that relationship, working directly on capacity for trust and things like that. Really just loved it. And then what's happened in the last few months, where we've started the first pilot certification and mentoring, a little group of us, I really feel that my understanding of these priors that Laura has talked about has really come in strong, and this frequency approach where you have a collection of these past influences that can go from toxins and birth traumas and whatever have childhood stuff to more recent stuff, and finding like the hum that ties them all together, the frequency that ties them all together is just mind-blowing to work with. And I love seeing the results with my clients, and also how they are engaged in going, oh, I just never saw the connection between what happened when I was 3 and when I got divorced from my husband and when I was ill with COVID. There's a similarity that just gives a whole new understanding.
Yeah. Thank you
I'm going to
for
chime
sharing,
in
Britt.
with
Yeah, go ahead and chime in, Julia.
I'm going to chime in for one. Totally agree with Britt about the whole Dr. Laura factor when it comes to learning a new way of working, because I just know I'm going to get it, even if it seems complex at first. Like when I first started epigenetics, like, oh my gosh. But no, it's that, any of you who have worked with Dr. Laura know like how her charts are so amazing. And I'm a visual learner, so these charts are just extraordinary. So thanks, Laura. You always just bring such great new material to us. And for me, working with the brain nets really feels like we've got a missing piece of this mind-body puzzle now. Um, my background a little bit. I left a career. I was training to be a professor. I was at Stanford University working on my PhD in medical anthropology, science and technology studies, and philosophy. So looking at paradigms of paradigm shifts of healing and medicine and how we understand our bodies within our cultural position in the world. That's just my passion. So I left and I became an acupuncturist and herbalist, ran an acupuncture clinic for almost 20 years or 15 years there. And then when the pandemic hit, now I've been doing just body intuitive full time. And I get to be an instructor. I get to work with Laura a lot and Britt teaching great classes. So super excited about continuing that with this new work. So for the brain nets, for me, like instead of dialing into a particular lobe of the brain or a particular organ and its function, we get to recognize that all the activity inside us kind of operates in these networks. And when we have either an optimal or suboptimal frequency of how these networks are expressed, and then how they communicate and interact with each other, it feels such like an elegant understanding to be able to bring everything we need into the fold by working this way. So all the strategies that we've been using, either body talk or body intuitive, it just all neatly aligns and it's just all built up to where we are, how we can kind of reattune these networks. So it builds upon rather than replaces what we've already learned. And I just feel like our knowledge is just expanded. So the patterns are just amazing to watch unfold when you're working with clients. I really love working with language and metaphor in my practice. And these networks just seem to be super conducive to that. And the clients just really resonate with what comes up. So, yeah, I think that I'm in awe of this material and this advanced work. It is just extraordinary. So, super fun.
Thank you. I wondered if either of you wanted to comment on how this work is distinct from things that you have done before or how it has changed your practice. Like do you do things differently now?
Yeah, you want to go, Brett?
Well, I have found recently that my sessions are getting longer.
Yeah.
Not, not particularly something I wanted, but it feels that the scope of the sessions are broader now, and we going through, yeah, going down through the garden to find all these sort of posts along the way does take more time, as
Mhm.
something I hadn't anticipated. But the journey, my clients are very engaged in this journey, and they come back and say, "Oh, I've been dreaming about this thing we talked about," and so there is a great engagement I find with this, and I am also still able to work with distant sessions with this materials. So that I work both in physical clinic and at a distance, both on Zoom and also completely off, like asynchronous. So that is also possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I work entirely on telehealth, and this is really just as easy, if not easier, to do that. Um, I also feel like the networks really encompass kind of everything. And so I would say when I first started the brain network stuff, I was mainly doing body intuitive, and then brain networks would kind of pop in when I got to nervous system. But now the material has evolved, and taking all the advanced classes, mind, body, one, two, the NETs one, two, and three class, I almost always start there. And maybe some epigenetics will come in, maybe some, advanced communicator stuff will come in. But I'm noticing that I don't have to get quite so granular as I used to. I'm really glad I know the depth of that material, like how a chromatin marker or methyl DNA, I know what that looks like and how I can energetically visualize making those shifts. But in the brain network stuff, it's kind of like, okay, and now you magical network, now that we cleared the prior and we found that perfect repatterning resonance, that song is humming, you're just going to take care of that, right? That epigenetic work that we're doing. And it does. And so the shifts are happening at I don't know, it's just vibrating at a higher frequency at all levels.
Yeah, I would say that really matches my experience of this work. I mean, developed these epigenetics approaches, so I'm like the master of details there. But now I find I can see, oh yeah, the prior also created some, it imprinted in on the DNA. It's held in the epigenetic level. But network, could you just like handle that? And you're
Yeah.
working at a different frequency. And one, things are easier. Even
Yeah,
people that are chronically ill can do a lot more in a session
yeah,
because we're operating in a new realm, in a new dimension. So
yeah.
that's what I'm noticing. It's deeper. It's less sessions to get more results, and yeah.
But it's funny with the fewer sessions and getting quicker results. My clients are coming back more frequently because they love the work so much. It's like it becomes they're noticing the patterns and they're making connections like, oh, remember we did that? Does that connect with this? And maybe the same prior will come up, but for a different network communication issue later because, it's not just one place where it lands.
I'm going to just answer Melissa's question because it's on this vein. Yes, I actually coined um, the concept for, at least for my work, of bandwidth, which is there is an intuitive assessment that we do when we do epigenetics, like does the person have enough healing oomph, essentially healing energy capacity right now to orchestrate the session, or do we need to do a small session? And I'm finding that even people that would have a very low capacity to process a body talk session or a body intuitive session, with networks, you can do a lot more. They can do a much bigger session and it flows through fine. Bandwidth is different in this realm.
Hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is
I
correct.
definitely feel that too with my
Yeah,
clients.
yeah.
Yes. All right, so I want to move on to share a little bit about the classes. Anything else either of you want to share?
Well, I would just like to say I hope to see many of you in Holland in October. I will be there. It will be the first of hopefully many classes in Europe. So hope to see you there.
Yes, definitely. And I just want to share one thing. I've been working more with some children, children with neurobehavioral issues. One little sweet 6-year-old boy even kicked out of his school because suddenly, like in this late onset, rare autism diagnosis. And I'd been working with this family for a while, and we've gotten a lot done. And before the brain network stuff came in, but when the brain network stuff came in, wow. So yeah, I still cleared some epigenetic markers that were neuroinflammatory due to COVID. But when we started doing the brain network stuff, his teachers and his mom, it's like suddenly he's engaging with people again. It's like he's back to his old self, or he's finding his way back to his old self. And So this is still working through proxy with his mom. So finding, 6-year-olds don't have a whole like suitcase of baggage that they're carrying with them, but they do, right? The in utero stuff and the birth stuff, and just finding these priors and then the repatternings. It's just been remarkable. So I'm having super, super fun with it. And yes, I will be in the Netherlands too, and I can't wait to see all of you. And yay. Thanks for having us, Laura.
Yes, thank you for
Thanks, Laura.
joining. I appreciate you adding your voices into the mix. What are the next steps to bring brain networks into your healing universe? And first, I want to take you just quickly through the whole series. So this method I want to highlight, it is not body talk, it is not body intuitive, it is a standalone method, and it is called Neuro Attune. Okay, so that there's a set of Neuro Attune trainings now. Basically, it starts with the mini course where you get the whole method, okay? And you learn the big three networks that kind of are in charge of your whole brain and your whole being. If you do not have a background in body talk or body intuition, the Mind Body Science Foundation gives you the mini course and that background that you need in order to dive into this whole flow of trainings. And then there is Mind Body Networks 1, where you expand from the big three networks, you add 9 more, you learn their interactions of the big 12 networks, you learn their personalities and their functions, so that you can harmonize. And this group basically covers your emotional response, your intuition, the big picture consciousness of your mind and body, movement, sensing. It is, and the ability to communicate and in language. So that is Mind Body Networks 1. Mind Body Networks 2, that I'm teaching this week, takes my fascination with stress and stress mindset, basically sympathetic, parasympathetic, the autonomic nervous system, into networks. And in order to understand how and why we get stressed or not, and what mindset we go to, scientists have added in a whole set of other networks that are our ability to perceive everybody else and it's govern our range of emotional behaviors and emotional perceiving capability. So the social emotional brain networks. And then probably my favorite is Mind Body Networks 3, and that goes into the somatic networks of sensing and movement and the neuroinflammation control. So neuroimmuno network that was just described a year ago, as well as the pain and pain relief networks. And it goes into connections in the energy body, specifically looking at the chakras as nerve plexes. Um, and then, as Britt and Julia said, they are in the first group of certification mentoring, and I am offering that as part of the whole Neuro Attune training series. So again, the Brain Networks mini course, if you want to dive into that, it is next being held in about 6 weeks on September 26th. You get the Intuition Network, your Brilliant Thinker Central Executive Network, and your Inner Critic Network. Those three basically control most of your being. And I've seen people do incredible sessions just with the method and the big three brain networks. Um, you will have a set of charts that will hold all the information, the method, and all the details and information on the networks as part of the class. Righty, but if you want to take the whole foundations, it has a lot of fun things that everyone might be interested in. It has the whole science of intuition. So you learn about all those networks that I just touched on today that really explain our intuitive capabilities. And you learn structured intuition that allows you to dive in and do the whole rest of the trainings. The Brain Networks mini course is part of this, and you get a starter kit of the Brain Network healing tools as part of this. It's being offered before the mini course. It includes the mini course earlier in September as well as in December. But if you want to join us in Europe, you're going to need to grab it in September. Okay. So I've got two specials right now, depending on your time zone stripe on the planet. If you are a Euro compatible time zone, or if you want to join us in the Netherlands or Germany, I'm teaching live at the end of October, beginning November in Germany, live in person, but we're also live streaming. So you can join in either way. If you attend live or live online, you get the full recordings of the class. And there is a bundle that includes everything. You get the foundations, the mini course, and the 4-day intensive. Okay. And you can pay in full or over months. And depending on your time, your currency and the currency exchange with the US dollar, there are some specials for people in different areas. So you can inquire about that. So if you do the whole bundle, it's basically $800 off for the whole series. So I would love to see you guys in Europe. It's going to be super fun. And there is space in both classes. I will send you the recording with links to sign up for things, um, and the early bird deadline for these two to get the $150 off if you register by the early bird. If Europe is not a time zone stripe that works for you, if you're more in the US Canada range, foundations that includes the mini course you could grab the September, the December, or the February class. And then Mind Body Networks 1 and the mini course are being offered live and streamed, live stream in March. The dates and registration links will be available within a week, and there's a lot of savings on this bundle as well. So those are the specials. And I want to thank you all for joining. I am happy to answer any questions. I feel like I've arrived at a whole new dimension of healing, working with the brain networks. And if you want to join me in that dimension, I'm happy to answer any questions about specific classes. If you want to experience the work, I'm happy to connect you with a practitioner. And we will shortly be running, as part of the certification program, an opportunity to be a case study and receive a whole set of sessions. And you will get a link to apply for those sessions as well if you are interested. The email about if you have any questions is registrar@mindbodyscience.com, and my website is mindbodyscience.com. Thank you, everyone.